therapy, recommendations for therapy, part one. So the single best predictor of effective therapy is the quality of the relationship. So I'm not anti-therapy. No, 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 no. I've spent 33 years doing therapy and I try to be the best at it. I mean, it's my calling for sure. So I'm not anti-therapy, but I am very anti-bad therapy. Therapy should be time limited and it should address specific issues. Now, yes, I have some people that have been in therapy long term with me, but we work on this, then I don't see them for a long time, then they come back, they say, I have this problem, so we work on this, and then they go for a while, and then we get, so yes, it may look like they've been in therapy a long time with me, but they're not. It's short interventions. And again, therapy is not, let's not think about therapy as being effective. Let's think about therapists being effective. So I want you to be involved. I want you to meet, assess, and vet your teen's psychotherapist, because psychotherapy can have well-documented negative effects, especially on the parent-child relationship, right? So if I'm the perceived expert and you told them I'm the expert, and then I tell them, hey, you don't have to tell your parents anything we talk about, and I'm not ever going to tell your parents anything we talk about. Well, what are we doing? We're having a secret relationship. That's not therapy, right? We're going to get down to this. So let me jump down to child confidentiality, parenting, and family dynamics. So there's a lot of times your kid is the canary in the coal mine. If you're not familiar with that saying, I use it because I'm old, but canary in the coal mine, supposedly back in the day, miners would carry canaries in little teeny cages down in the mine. Canaries need like, I don't know, 19 or 18% oxygen. We only need like 16 or 17. So when the canary would start flopping around, they knew the oxygen was too low. So then they would haul out of the mine. So the canary in the coal mine is they're the weakest link. So sometimes I am working with a kid who's just an extension of the family dysfunction, right? So in that case, I do want to have relationships with the parents. I do want to talk about parenting. I do want to talk about a more effective thing. I am going to change the family dynamics, but don't be intimidated by that. I'm going to do that in a very good therapist should do that in a very quick few session manner. And it should get better, not worse, right? If we're doing effective treatment, symptoms shouldn't go up. Symptoms should go down. And if they're going down, then they become what's called self-reinforcing. So then you want more of the good stuff. So at first I say, hey, maybe you should try this parenting technique, and you defer to me and you try it. But then it starts working and you're like, wow, this is great. So then you decide you're doing it for you. So that's why parents have to be involved. I'm treating your kid because your kid is a part of a system. And even if and I'm not saying you're the problem. I'm not saying you're the catalyst or you're the genesis for this. But let's say your kid has anxiety. Don't you want to know that? Don't you want to know what we're going to work on? I mean, my influence is this. Your influence is this. So what are the hallmarks of anxiety or depression? Hallmarks of anxiety is overthinking, vigilant for harm, overwhelmed, future orientation, trying to control things, trying to make lists, trying to overthink, right? Low confidence, low self-esteem. So if I sit down with you and say, hey, listen, your kid's got anxiety issues. Does anybody else have anxiety issues? Because it's very common that a mom or a dad has some anxiety issues, and inadvertently, they've given this non-safe world paradigm to their kid. Not always, but sometimes. So I'm like, hey, listen, I know you're thinking it is you being prepared but maybe your kid's perceiving this as being unstable or the world is dangerous or something. And if that's not the case, but I say, hey, listen, every time you're interacting with your kid or every other time, could you be pointing out something that's positive? Could you be saying to your kid, wow, I'm so impressed with you going to that class today. I know you didn't want to. I know it's very anxiety provoking. Or, hey, I know when we go in this restaurant, I know you don't like to order from the menu, but here's the menu. I looked at it on Yelp, and let's pick what you're going to pick, and then let's practice it. And then when you go in there, you order for yourself. So do you see how you can do all of these things? Your influence is this big. You have your kid 24/7. I have your kid for an hour. So let's maximize the effectiveness of the treatment. So you have to be involved, right?
Real quick, just to clarify, we had someone ask a question, and I think this does bear good clarification. So there's a difference between developing kind of strong mental health, which is what Scott is addressing here, and versus just better executive functioning. And executive functioning can involve everything from attention, planning, execution, time management, a lot of these other things that can be impacted if your child has ADD, that kind of thing. So there are a lot of resources just to help create good habits that improve executive functioning. And afterwards, I'll be happy to send that to you when I send you this recording. There's some wonderful, wonderful resources for that don't necessarily pair hand in hand with mental health. Although I've heard, and Scott can mention this too, that sometimes with certain mental health diagnosis, it can sometimes indicate that there's a slightly younger maturity effective age in certain kids just because of that. But yeah, so executive functioning are more skills that can be taught versus maybe what he's talking about now. And what that's coming from, Scott, is the person says, I love this parent insight, and I have these general guidelines that work for my neurotypical child. So how does this approach change for parents with children of neurodivergent, with like ADHD, processing challenges, all of that? So that's what I interpreted for more with executive functioning. But do you have any other comments to that?
Well, because I'm of the generation where I was diagnosed with ADHD, and I do have ADHD. And so I'm of the generation where you went off medication when you were 14 or 15 because it was considered a childhood disorder. Now we know it's pretty much an adult disorder. So what I used to do with my wife and my kids, this means dad's got ADHD, and it doesn't mean, I'm watching you. It means, hey, pay attention to what I'm saying, dad, because I know you're really reading this, but you have to pick me up at 3 o'clock. Dad, you have to pick me up at 3 o'clock. And I'm like, got it. I'll be there at 3 o'clock. So again, it's not exaggerating our weaknesses. It's playing to our strengths. So then once I know, she knows, I know that I'm going to be there at 3 o'clock, then I'm going to be there at 3 o'clock, even though I have ADHD and I'm prone to distraction. So again, that's why if we go back one more, Elizabeth, I think that's why what you want to try to do, you want to talk with the therapist. You want to stay involved. Are you noticing behavioral, emotional, or mood changes? Are they withdrawing, changes in grades or functions that last more than a few days? Get involved. Notice, hey, what's going on with you? What's up? You seem unhappy. You seem distressed. You seem depressed. Or you seem sad. What's going on? So find out, assess your kid. You're the parent. No one knows your kid better than you. No one. You know your kid the best, right? Now, I would make an appointment with the pediatrician or the PCP within 10 days. I wouldn't let this linger. I wouldn't let this go. So teen angst is normal, right? But it should come and kind of go over a few days. So if your kid is crying and sad for 3 days, okay. A week, I'm a little concerned. 2 weeks, I'm definitely concerned, right? So that's why I think you should get your kid to the pediatrician, and then and the pediatrician will assess the kid, and the pediatrician will tell you, not TikTok, that yes, your kid needs therapy. I think your kid needs counseling, or let's run some blood. Let's do some blood work. It's a this, it's a that, it's a this. We want to rule out medical issues, hormonal issues, all of those types of things. So therapy is not effective. Therapy, Okay. If you feel that your kid needs therapy, you want to vet the therapist carefully and ask questions and stay involved. Where do we find good therapists? Your pediatrician knows good therapists. Word of mouth, family, friends, the school counselor, they all know, or they've worked with therapists that are good. So word of mouth is good. Now, Psychology Today is where we list our bios, our qualifications, all that type of stuff as well. So you can then sort, if you have a choice of a couple, and then you can sort them on Psychology Today, or at least some of us have little video clips. You can get a sense of who this person is and what their experience is. Okay, so there are ways to find good therapists, but you still need to vet them, because remember, the active ingredient is my relationship with your kid. If I'm the key, I don't relate well with everyone, right? So I may not relate well with your kid, or this person may not. So we always want to be establishing that. You want to ask how long you've been in practice. The reason for this is very simple. I've trained probably 80 therapists. All the 8 therapists that work for me, they went through my training, or my training program, my supervision program. What typically happens is therapists right out of school working on their associate license, when they're provisionally licensed, they tend to work with kids and teens. Why? Because adults are more difficult, right? So they're working with kids and teens. So you have therapists that aren't that experienced. Most of them tend to be young. Most of them tend to not be married or have kids, or understand those challenges. So do you see some of the issues here? So you want to be finding out, who are you? How long have you been doing this? What is your diagnosis? What have you diagnosed my kid with? How are you going to work on it? How many sessions do you think it'll take? And I'm not trying to overstep or get out of my lane, but I'm just trying to find, what do you think? Is this going to take 6 weeks, 6 months, 6 years, whatever? And then what can I target with my kid? Again, if the diagnosis is depression, right, then I'm going to be actively engaged with my kid outside of therapy, trying to get them to do more, right? Because they know they should do more, but they don't feel like it because of the depression. So how do we overcome the depression? We try to have them increase their level of activity, engage more, right? And there's all those types of things. If my kid has ADHD, then I'm probably going to really talk with them about the utilization of the phone. And when you're talking with somebody, you probably have to put the phone away. Those types of little tidbits. How many sessions do you think it'll take? What can I target with my kid? What homework should we do at home? That's the same type of thing. How often will we attend sessions? What skills should we work on? Right? So there was a comment about, my therapist doesn't want to do family work. Why do you think that is? Do you think working with a kid by themselves is easier or more difficult than working with a family?
Oh, it's easier.
It's way easier. So there's a whole lot of people that's all they do, right? They can't talk to adults. They don't engage with adults, right? Family work is not easy. Marital work is not easy, right? I mean, all these different things. So I think families should attend sessions. If nothing more than for you to tell me what you're seeing from your kid, in front of your kid, in front of me, reinforcing your kid for the positive changes, that's worth a session right there, right? Because we're facilitating your relationship with your kid.
We did have a quick question before the next slide. Someone asked, I think a good question. So if your teen is over 18, how can you assess how therapy is going? And a follow-up, what is typically the best type of therapy for that age group?
So yes, when my kids turned 18, they're adults, right? And they thought they were adults. And I said, okay, but you're still going to come and go. I'm still going to pay for your cell phone. I'm still going to pay for your car. I'm still paying for your college. I'm still doing that. So what are you saying? So again, I would say to my kid, do you want me involved? Do you not want me involved? Why do you not want me involved? I think it might be helpful for me to be involved. All of those types of things. And again, it's hard to address that directly without knowing the specifics and the history and all of those types of things. So on the one hand, strengths-based approach, I would say, hey, great, I'm glad that you're stepping up and you're trying to be an adult and you want to do this yourself and do that and do all that. That's great. But I am still your family and I want to support you. So what can I do? Can I talk to the therapist? Can I be engaged? Can I be involved? Does that make sense?
Hmm.
Okay, so more information. Again, I think he's the best. You'll see him out in the community talking the most, and that's Jonathan Haidt, or Haidt. And he's got his empirical work is excellent. He's got tons of empirical studies. I mean, published literature, the scientific literature, but he's also got books. And he's got 4 or 5 bestsellers out at any given time. The latest one was The Anxious Generation, and this concept that we've rewired childhood without even realizing that we've done. Parenting, systematic training for effective parenting STEP program is it's one that I've used forever. This concept of mastery, a mastery model of parenting where we're striving to raise, people talk about we're raising adults, but the problem is that we're giving children adult privileges online. I'm not talking that. I'm talking we're trying to get them to master this, then they can master this, then they master this, then they master this. It takes this long or this long, but we work with our own kids till they master something. And this is just for your own edification. Therapeuticization, iatrogenic effects. Therapy isn't fixing America's mental health crisis. That was a special issue in Time magazine a year ago. Bad Therapy, Why Kids Aren't Growing Up by Abigail Shrier. That's a best-selling book that's getting a lot of play, and it's all about this whole effects of who do therapists really want to work with? Do they want to work with schizophrenics? Do they want to work with bipolar? Do they want to work with homeless? Or do they want to work with American teens? And which is easier and which is a better business model? So therapists really don't like that book. And then just Monday, New York Times published this, Are We Talking Too Much About Mental Health? And if you go into that, you'll see these iatrogenic effects. And really what social media is doing mostly to girls in terms of exaggerating symptomology. So that's it. Questions? We went way over. That hour-long presentation took 2 hours. I apologize.
It's okay. I'm going to stop sharing, but guys, here, I will send you the presentation afterwards, so you have all of this to refer to. But now that you've heard him kind of supplement with what you see on the screens, the notes will make more sense. Here's his contact information. He's based out of Gastonia. Scott, do you prefer only to, if someone did want to follow up with you, just curious, do you prefer for them to have access to come see you in person, or do you do virtual?
I do virtual, I do in person, all of the above. And so they're welcome to use the phone number to get right to the front desk. And they run my schedule, or they can email. Those are my emails, and then I will schedule with them and reach out with them, or answer any questions and not even schedule. I'll do a free consultation, like a 15-minute free consultation for anyone that's interested in applying this information to your own specific situation. Yeah.
So what I hope has happened, I know it reinforced, because again, I've known Scott and Lynn and his kids for years, almost raised our kids together in many ways. But I hope what the takeaway is one, now you're informed and empowered with knowledge, but also you're reinforced that no, you still are the parent, and you still have authority, and you still have the capacity to enact change in a positive way for your child. They're not just out there being a victim of all these other things, and you can't help them. And so hopefully that has been a bigger message that's come from this. And I think it was well needed. And yeah, I know we went longer, but when it's important and when all this stuff is good, it's time well spent. I think you'll agree. Do we have any questions before we wrap up and let you go grab lunch? Everybody, if you have, y'all were really good about asking questions along the way, which we really appreciate. It made it more engaging. If you have any more questions right now, hearkening back to anything, please say something. Oh, we do have one. Oh, here we go. So, oh, she said, this has been extremely helpful. Thank you so much for having this session. So if y'all have any other feedback like that, we always, like that. All I did was moderate. This was all Scott. I just take credit for
Oh, no,
knowing smart people. Well, good. Thank you so much for that. And also just a quick note, something that Scott was talking about, the power of disconnecting for a while. There's a great program, depending on the age of your teen, called Teens Westward Bound. And it's 23 days. If you need more information, I can provide it. It's based out of Davidson, and it's a 23-day, basically a camping trip. Claire did it, didn't she? Did she do
Yes.
2BB?
Yep.
My son
Loved
did it as well. And it's interesting, but it's a 23-day camping trip on a bus. But they sleep outside, they camp out in school gyms, college gyms, and all this kind of stuff. But one of the first rules is no technology. You can have a camera, but you cannot take a phone at all under any circumstances. And what they say is give yourself the gift of disconnecting and being present. And you're going to discover America while you also discover yourself. And that's the whole point. And they even go a step further and say for the whole trip, I think there's 75 kids on the trip or so. For the whole trip, you cannot sit next to the same person twice. Even when they stop for gas, you got to switch seats. And so it's all about being present, being life in 3D, appreciating nature, but also learning how to connect with this random assortment of people that you didn't know till you got on the bus. And my son did it, and I have to tell you, it was amazing. He was always a nice kid. This was Jackson, but always had this little bit of almost insecurity, self-doubt. He was younger than a lot of his peers. And when that boy, he even threw up on the way to go to TWB. We had to pull off on the interstate because he was so nervous. When that child got off the bus, he was a different human being. He was standing tall, smiling big. He went back to school 2 weeks later. He ran for student body president and he won. My kid would never do that. But something changed that markedly made a difference. And I've had so many kids, I probably know 100 kids that have done TWB, and many of them say it was the most transformative thing they've ever done. And so if you ever want to learn more about that, I'll be happy to send that information out. You do have to be kind of recommended for it, but I can take care of that. But I think that disconnect from the phone and technology was really, really huge for a lot of these kids. So
It's
there
the
are
first
programs
time,
like
it's the first time in their whole life, right? Since the time they were this generation, like 8 or 10, they've
Mhm.
been connected. And so, I mean, remember they would have different groups. So one would do the shopping, one would do the cooking, one would do the laundry, one would do the this, or no, they did their own laundry. They would
Yeah.
sleep outside, get rained on,
Mhm.
and then go into a gym. And the takeaway was, yeah, we got rained on. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so what? We only got 3 hours of sleep. It was great. We ate, yeah, we ate pancakes for every meal for the last 2 days or 3 days. But I mean, it was literally teaching resiliency and adaptability. Yeah, anti-fragility
Yeah.
in real time. I forgot about those people. That's true.
Yeah, they're still going strong, doing
Yeah.
great. All right, guys. Well, you invested hopefully time well spent. I know it was for me. I could listen to Scott all day, and I will put this together. Oh, we have another comment and get this out to. Oh, someone says yes. Share information on the Teens Westward Bound group. And I'll do that in a follow-up. And one other person said, but if you have a child that doesn't want to discuss anything or have therapy, but you feel they need therapy, maybe because of friend issues or rare medical condition that they're dealing with. And however, how do you even discuss that with your child to convince them that it would be helpful for them? So they're resistant to it. You as a parent can see it, that the need
Yeah.
is there,
Oh,
but
absolutely.
back.
Yeah.
What do you do?
So I mean, again, as a parent, right, we take our kids to get shots. They don't enjoy that. We take our kids to the dentist. They don't enjoy that. But what's the rationale? The rationale, this is my job. So
Mhm.
if I sat down with my kid and I said, I'm really worried about you, I'm not trying to convince my kid.
Mhm.
I'm informing my kid that listen, this is outside of a parental domain. I have to take you to a professional and we'll sit down together and we'll talk about my concerns. Even if you don't say a word, we can talk about, I'm really worried about her or him because of this, this, and this. And again, uh, does it help facilitate treatment if your kid doesn't talk? No, it slows it way down. But are there techniques that therapists can utilize to get kids to talk? Yes, there are. And that's where you start getting into things like play therapy, drawing, things like that, playing Uno, doing different things, is that you may look at it and say, he's not doing therapy. Oh, I am doing therapy, but especially with like boys, if we're doing activity, they think we're doing the activity, but I'm like, hey, whatever happened with that teacher the other day? Oh, this is da da da. So I mean, there's just a lot of different ways to go about doing that. But again, the kid's not going to dictate whether they get the treatment they need. The parent needs to, right? Is that too harsh?
No, that's
Okay, so
truth.
so
And it's interesting because I had thought while you were talking before, I had noticed, and I've heard it said before, if I need to get some information, especially my boys' routines, if I needed to get information out of them, I would do it when we're in the car because we're not making eye contact. They're driving, I'm driving, and they'll share a lot more that way than if I'm sitting like, okay, tell me what's going on. We have to be doing something else. And they would share a lot more. Whereas with my daughter, she would want to sit and go, okay, let me tell you everything. You know what I mean? So it was kind of,
totally different.
yeah,
Yes.
really interesting.
Yeah.
So anyhow,
Yeah.
hopefully this is encouraging. Scott is a phenomenal therapist, especially with teens,
Thank you.
but
Very much.
he's not claiming to be the only one, but now you're empowered with knowledge, but also encouragement that no, you're still the parent. You have influence over all of this and you can work to your child's best interest. So thank you so much. I'll get TWB out to you. I'll get this recording out to you. I'll tighten up any things that we need to tighten up just to shorten the length if we need to, but you go have a great time with your kids. Go do something fun, live in 3D. Okay. Scott, thank you so much, my friend.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Appreciate it.
Thank
Bye-bye,
you.
y'all.
All right, bye.